Welcome to Not So Silent. We will say what you can't. We think we're right. I wouldn't bet on it. All right, it is September 21st. September has been an amazing month. Last time I told you we were up 5 times growth. We are reaching almost the 10 times growth for this month already, which was the goal here. Do me a giant favor as you're watching right now, right down below on this, right down there, there's a little subscribe button. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please go and follow us or subscribe there. That way you get it automatically. And do me a giant favor. This is really the goal. I don't care if you listen. I want to make sure everyone else does. So please make sure you share this with all your friends on social media. Get the word out. Not So Silent. We are going to open our mouths and hopefully you guys enjoy listening. And also give us any feedback that you can as to ways we can get better. All right. So on today's show, we are going to be talking about defund the criminals. Let's get defunding the criminals. Why can't we get that with a little hashtag? So defund the criminals. We are also going to go over the big news, as many of you probably heard, of Ruth Bader Ginsburg passing late last week. We're going to go over that. We'll do a little bit of sports updates. We're going to talk about sports, and then we will do some prognostication station, and we got our top five worst trends. All right. So I am joined by Chris Hurd again in St. Louis. Howdy, Chris. How you doing?
Howdy. Good to be here. I mean, I have nowhere else to go, so it's good to be anywhere, but here I am.
There you are. All right. Did you have a good, enjoyable weekend here? It was beautiful weather. It was a little chilly up in Chicago, but I am getting ready to get out of this weather that's about to come here and move south down by you to Nashville.
Man, I love the cold weather. It's like I sweat all the time. And it's not just because I'm a liar and a thief and a cheat, right? It's hot outside, but I love the cool weather. I love being able to go outside in shorts and have a breeze in the nethers, keeping things cool. And it's more for other people, too. I don't smell as bad as well in the cold. So I love it.
You know, you would stop sweating if you weighed less than 300 pounds.
Impossible. I'm still in a bulking phase. You know that. I don't get into my cutting phase till 2030.
All right. So let's talk about, I don't know if you saw last week. I thought this was hilarious. Did you see the Minneapolis City Council meeting that they hosted over Zoom when all the council people, and I say council people because it would be very sexist if I had said council members or council men, council women. So council people, because there are some in there that have different pronouns. And they came out, and if you remember, Minneapolis they were the ones right away that they came out and said defund the police, and they voted unanimously to defund the police in Minneapolis. And now, not but 3 months later, this meeting, they were screaming, "Where are the police?"
I saw that line. I saw that headline.
Where are the police? All violent crime is skyrocketing in their city, and they're surprised. Where are the police? And they were aiming it at the cops. They were aiming it at the police chief going, "Where are you guys? My constituents are calling and you're not responding," is what they said. What do you say to them?
You know, I would like to think of a belief I held strongly was so back-asswards that I was shouting something that was complete. I mean, I can't imagine having an ideology where it's so obvious that I sowed the seeds of the destruction that's happening. I would like to think I would wake up. But are they really just playing the long game? Are they like method actors there? Are they buying into the ideology that much that they don't understand that you're defunding the police, you're handicapping your police and not allowing them to do their job? Do they really not understand what's happening? Like, how does this even happen?
I don't know. I have no idea what they think is going on. What did they think would happen when you screamed defund the police? What did they think would happen? Did they think that crime would go down?
In their defense, they use platitudes like community leaders and organizers and church leaders and coming together. And those things usually work. When you say
really? Do you really think a sociologist is going to be able to prevent and help you if you just were raped?
If Arnold Schwarzenegger was a sociologist, maybe.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, come on. This is ridiculous. I can't understand why they don't realize that they created this mess. Not to mention the bigger mess that they're creating is the divide that they're creating in the world here. I mean, it's a disaster. They're creating people who now are pointing their fingers at police officers, that police officers are bad, right? Police officers are coming to get them. Police officers are going to harm them. And what you have done is what we are starting to see nationwide. I don't know if you've seen the two events have happened. The one that was publicized pretty heavily was in Los Angeles, as you saw the two LA sheriffs who were shot in an ambush. Same thing happened in Phoenix, although the police weren't struck. But the same thing, the police again were ambushed in Phoenix. So if you're a cop, I mean, seriously, they keep wanting to say, let's have a conversation. That's all I keep hearing is since May is let's have a conversation. We need to have a conversation. You want to have a conversation? What do you think you would do? Because everyone keeps saying, what am I supposed to tell my kids if I'm a black man? What am I supposed to tell my kids if the police stop them? I don't know. Same thing I tell my kids if the police stop you. You do whatever they tell you to do. You just stop and hand them your ID or whatever it is. You stop and you listen. And if you get a ticket, you accept the ticket. And if you want to fight it, you go fight it in court. And then that's how it works.
That's part of the problem is fathers aren't living in households, white or black. You know, we've got all these single family households. You've got the left trying to destroy the family unit. That's one of the methodologies of the Black Lives Matter is wanting the state to raise your kids. You don't have fathers telling their kids this, right? It's part of the problem.
So, but again, so now we look at it and we go, so let's have the conversation. I want to have the conversation. I spent some time this weekend because this is getting me fired up because I know a lot of police officers and so I understand how this all works. I wanted to go over. So we have the LA sheriffs were shot. Did you see what happened? We talked about this briefly. We didn't get into it with enough depth, and that's even our fault. But the Antoine Rose situation in Pittsburgh, right? The Pittsburgh Steelers put Antoine Rose. The team decided everyone on the team is going to put Antoine Rose on the back of their helmets. We talked about last week, Alejandro Villanueva, Villanueva is he's a Pittsburgh Steeler and he's a former Army Ranger, or maybe current, I guess. And he decided to put tape over it and put a name of a fallen military veteran, a black fallen military veteran on the back of his helmet, which I thought was awesome. No one, some people talked about that. Then Marquise Pouncey, and boy, is he my favorite guy. I kind of want to go get a Marquise Pouncey jersey. But Marquise Pouncey now goes out and he tweets out, or whatever you want to call it, and says, I apologize. I didn't do enough research on this. And the sad thing is no one did. No one did. The amount of mainstream media that didn't do the research and didn't cry out and say, hang on, you're lifting up Antoine Rose. Do you know the case? Actually, why don't you tell me the case? Because what I'm finding as I talk to people, a lot of people don't really know it. They go, oh yeah, well, Antoine Rose was a criminal. No, that's fine. Just because you're a criminal doesn't mean a cop should be able to shoot you just because 3 years ago you did something wrong. Do you know the Antoine Rose case?
Are you asking me specifically?
Yes.
My understanding was he was doing a drive-by shooting for a guy that he knew. The guy took cover in a store. The police were called, and they, when they arrived on the scene, he fled, had a gun clip in his pocket, a gun on the floor of his car, hand tested positive for gun residue. Pretty clear that he was responsible for the drive-by shooting, and they fired on him and killed him for fleeing. It's my understanding.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. Yeah, that's all accurate. Now, we could have lengthy debate and argument over did the cop do the right thing by shooting, and we could spend time and that's fine. And I can understand having that debate. And I think people should have that debate. There's nothing wrong with discussing was the right police, action chosen there. But let's just for a second realize this guy is no hero.
No.
This guy is not a hero. This guy was not some innocent victim of police brutality and systemic racism, which we're going to get to that in a second because that's getting me really fired up, this whole critical race theory, and we'll get there in a second. But this guy, and there's, by the way, you missed a couple of little pieces. There's videotape of the drive-by between the guy who was killed, Antoine Rose, and another person in the car. You cannot see exactly who's shooting, although the victim did say it was Antoine Rose. Antoine Rose did have the gun residue on his hand, and the gun that was found was the one in the drive-by. So pretty clear that that's what happened. This guy is a drive-by shooter, fires off 13 rounds at someone else because they had a beef, with each other. Shoots 13 rounds. Police chase him. They stop, get out of the car. Antoine Rose runs. Cops shoot him and kill him. And this is the guy that the Pittsburgh Steelers decided to raise up as the hero that we all, as the public, should be watching and seeing this and be in reverence of this. I'm sorry, LeBron James, and Doc Rivers and everyone else. What should you do if your son has the cops called on you? Not run. Let's start with that. That's a real simple one. But how about not be a drive-by shooter? How about not have the cops called? It's not like the cops were called because, hey, black man's driving a car. The car was in a drive-by shooting. How about you stay out of trouble? These are not difficult concepts. So that happens. Pittsburgh Steelers. And I wanted to get into some of the stuff because really we've been dealing with all of this. And I don't know if you know the date. May 25th is a really important date. Do you know what happened on May 25th?
No.
That was the George Floyd.
Yeah. Not long ago.
Doesn't it feel like that was like a decade ago though?
Yeah.
Think about it. That was May 25th. That was like the start of summer, right around actually the day after Easton, my middle son's birthday. And May 25th, George Floyd is killed, and it's disgusting. And here's what happened though. This is the part I want us to understand. Because I looked up George Floyd and this is what blew my mind. So May 25th it happened. So I look up George Floyd, and actually I used Wikipedia. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. But what I did in Wikipedia to figure this out, because I remember distinctly coming home on May 25th, and I came home, I had a long day at work. That evening at about 8:00, Sandra says, my wife says to me, "Did you see the video of the guy who was killed by the police?" And I said, "No, normally I would have, seen an update on my phone or something, didn't notice it." She said, "Man, that was disgusting. This police officer," and she kind of describes to me what happens. That night we're in bed. We watch probably Fox News, but I see a quick clip of it, and that's it. Here's how it was described on May 25th. If you look up Wikipedia, there's like 200 news articles that are referenced in George Floyd. There was only one from May 25th, and it was referenced as Minnesota man killed by police. However, if you start to look at the news articles on May 26th, it's totally different. All of a sudden on May 26th, it was black man in Minnesota killed by white officer. And I remember thinking when I saw the video, because when my wife told me that the guy was killed, she didn't say anything about race. Then I saw the video and I saw it was a black guy and a white cop. And I thought, and I'm not kidding, I said to her, I really hope this doesn't turn into a racial thing. Why does it have to be about race? Why couldn't it just be one cop is a dirtbag who's an idiot and did this? Why does it have to be that it was racially charged? Why is every time that it is two separate races, it is automatically racism that caused the event?
This is why it's so hard to have what you said as a conversation, because when the left is not willing to sit down and look at the facts and at least admit in many cases, like, for example, the hands up, don't shoot. Like the Obama DOJ cleared the cop of all charges, found that that was said to be a lie, but that is still a mantra of Black Lives Matter. So when it's like, wait a minute, you guys aren't willing to sit down at the table and go, yeah, we were wrong about this. That was not racially motivated. The cop was okay in that stance. When you're like, any killing of a black person whatsoever by a cop is considered racially motivated, you can't have a conversation. It's impossible to move forward. So nobody wants to give ground. It's like, I don't want to bring the Second Amendment debate into it, but it's like the right is so concerned about bending and adding more laws for to restrict gun ownership because the left's goal is to eliminate all guns from citizens. They came out and said it. Beto O'Rourke said it. Biden said, yeah, he's going to be in charge of that. I'm going to work with him to do that. So the whole idea of like, no, we don't want to restrict guns from everybody. We don't want to get rid of the Second Amendment. They've let the cat out of the bag too many times. And appeasement does not work with these people. So what do? They don't sit down and have a conversation. The second you start to describe the facts, they yell, they kick, they scream, they say you don't care about black people. The irony is like, we'd love to heal these divides, but I just don't think there are as many as that they say. This is just the narrative that they've stuck with. And that's all it is this narrative, this objective to root out our culture, change our history. Now, I think it's backfiring big time.
I hope so. And let me give you statistics because I did them. I did a lot of statistics on this. I have statistical analysis. You can fact check me if you want. Feel free to. And if I'm wrong, please, if you're listening, I want you to tell me where I'm wrong. I want to have a conversation. I am happy to have a conversation. I'm happy to be told I'm crazy. That's okay. Only my wife tells me that, but I'm sure maybe others would think so. So here's the statistics. If you are a white person in America, you have a 0.0001% chance of being killed by police. And now I didn't say unarmed or anything, just killed by police. And this is according to 2019 statistics, 0.0001%. If you're black, you have a 0.0005% chance. So by the way, those saying, what do I tell my kids when you get pulled over by a cop? I would tell them, don't worry, answer their questions, take the ticket and move on, because it's not exactly like your life is in danger all the time. In fact, your life is probably more in danger of COVID. And I think the statistics are probably similar anyway. So 0.0005%. So yes, as a percentage, now there are more whites killed than blacks, but there are more whites, per capita. So in Latino, you are 0.0002% chance. However, what doesn't come into account in this, when people want to say that's what tells you it's systemically racist, the part that they're not talking about is the percentage of violent crimes by people of those races. If we want to really play the race card, that it's all racism based, that if a white person were to get pulled over or shot by a cop, there's no race involved, but somehow if it's black, automatically it's a racist thing. How about the fact that blacks account for more, even though there is 1/5 the amount of blacks in America than whites, they account for more violent crimes than whites do, right? And that's fine. And so really, isn't the issue not about race, but probably more, let's talk about it from a gender perspective. Hot take. Men are targeted by police far more than women. But they don't talk about that. Why? Because they know that really the reason why men are targeted by women is because men are the ones causing the crimes.
Yep.
But they use race because it's race, it's an easy target. How about this one? Let me flip everything on its head though. How about this for a per capita? If you're a law enforcement officer, 135 were killed in the line of duty. Now you might say, well, hang on. That was just, they could have gotten in a car accident. You're correct. But 48 of them were killed feloniously in a felony, right? That means that's 0.006% of law enforcement officers, which means you are 12 times more likely to be killed as a law enforcement officer doing your job than you are as a black person in America on a per capita basis. 12 times. Jeez. 12 times more likely. And by the way, again, I'd like to know of the whites and blacks and Latinos who are killed by police officers, how many of them had no part of doing a crime, like the police officer who was just going to their job. So if you think about it, it is dramatically more dangerous to be a cop of any race. And by the way, of the 48 feloniously killed, 40 were white, 7 were black. Does that mean that white cops are targeted? Maybe. I don't think we need to have protests in the streets. I don't think it's systemically racist because of it. I think just so happened that they got killed, right? I get it. I don't think maybe a couple were targeted because they were white, but I just think in general, they got killed because they were in a gunfight with bad people. That's what happens. And they knew that when they signed up for their job. So again, where is this all stemming from, Chris? And I want to get into this on Wednesday when we do our next podcast. Is critical race theory. So for those of you, tune in on Wednesday because this is going to get deeper. We're talking about law enforcement right now. This all stems actually, critical race theory is way deep and way scary. And Derek Bell, holy cow, are you destroying our country with this idea? Former Harvard law professor who created basically the founder of this critical race theory. More or less, if I can boil it down, I guess the best way to say it is essentially everything that happens needs to happen proportionally based on your race. One way to look at it. Another way to look, there's a lot of ways you could look at his theory. And I'm sure he's a brilliant person and very intellectual and everything else. But this critical race theory is out of control. And it completely removes individual rights and individual freedoms and individual decisions from people and puts it 100% on race. And this is my statement to conclude this. The very people who say they want to get rid of racism are the ones creating racism. It's blowing my mind. They want to get rid of racism, and yet by definition, they are creating racism in our country. And it's disgusting to me. And I'm most disgusted as I watch my kids who are not racist, who have never thought about black versus white, all of a sudden are being told that that's how they have to think. And we'll talk about that on Wednesday when we talk about school, because this whole remote learning thing, I'm learning more and more about what my kids are being taught, and I got a lot to go into on that.
So by the way, real quick, the DOJ today categorized 3 cities as anarchist jurisdictions, I think is the phrasing they use. It was Seattle, New York, and Portland, which I believe means that they are legally allowed to remove federal funding from those cities until they shape up. So the federal government is doing something about it.
I'm glad they are, and I'm expecting Chicago to be next on that list.
Yep.
How about this? The Emmys had an all-time low.
I mean, that's not shocking. I did not watch a single thing that had to do with the Emmys. I read one headline that said something like, and the Emmy goes to, and then it said, who cares? And really, who cares? It's a bunch of self-aggrandizing bullcrap from a bunch of actors who are, again, self-righteous, patting each other on the back, blowing smoke up each other's butts, giving speeches to themselves, basically. Nobody's listening to them.
I know. No one's listening.
No.
And I think it's hilarious.
You act like a different person for a living? You know nothing about how to run somebody's life. You douche.
Yeah. So all-time low. How about the NBA ratings? Continuing to trend dramatically worse. 17% down on their East Conference Finals Game 2. And I am sure you can explain that they went head-to-head with an NFL game on Thursday, the Bengals and Browns, who cares? And there were no superstars in the Celtics and Heat, no Giannis or LeBron or whatever.
Pretty big market.
17, yeah, I mean, Boston, are you kidding?
Classic. That's a big NBA market, yeah.
Yeah, you can't ask for better than Boston, LA, Chicago.
Yep.
And ratings were down. Boston versus Miami, which I know Miami is not a big fan city, but those are 2 giant markets. Jen, that's not exactly Utah versus Denver. Those are 2 giant markets.
That is some of the best polling data we actually have, rather than the actual polling data. Is just seeing what the free market is doing in response to the wokeness.
I agree with that. Now, the NFL seems to have kind of steadied out, although we're not sure. We're still waiting on the rest of the weekend results, but it did look like Thursday was flat year over year, and the Fox game again was up. Do you think there's anything to do with Fox News? I know they're different. It's not Fox News, it's Fox.
I noticed
it's weird. Fox is up.
Yeah, I noticed they were the only ones that didn't see a big drop in ratings. I think you got a delay, buddy.
And so I wonder if there's any connection with those 2. Is Fox the games and Fox News? I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it, and I don't really know the media companies, but that's, it seemed weird to me. All right, to talk about ratings, I'm going to go with betting again. We're going to talk about it some more. I'm going to make sure everyone knows September 29th, because remember, I took the over on 100 million viewers. September 29th will be the first presidential debate. The first presidential debate will be September 29th, 8 p.m. What do you think the biggest news will be on September 29th? What do you think the biggest conversation of that will be?
That Biden didn't show up and has some excuse not to.
So you don't think the Ruth Bader Ginsburg?
I mean, I'm just trying to put my brain together here. Biden, when being fed softball questions like, hey, Donald Trump is bad, what's your comment on that? And he has a teleprompter to read off of, can't even put together a coherent few sentences. I don't know how he's going to do in a debate. I have a feeling that he's not going to show up. I have a feeling they're going to cancel it for some sort of, I don't know, man. Like it's going to be
COVID scare, like he had sniffles, so they just are being safe.
But Chris Wallace is moderating, and Chris Wallace is not exactly a hardline conservative. He's probably the most left-leaning guy on Fox right now.
Yeah, I mean, outside of like a Donna Brazile or whatever.
Now that being said, if he doesn't ask tough questions to Biden, that's going to be obvious. And Trump, here's the thing: Trump has been asking tough questions. He's been fielding press conferences for the media so often, like This guy can counterpunch. Biden is completely unprepared for even what would be considered remotely a difficult question, like even just a policy question. So I still think, even though Wallace is a little bit of a left leaner, I still think he's going to get crushed. Now, the SCOTUS stuff, it kind of depends on what happens in this next week, but I think we're going to try to ram something through here. So that'll be a big topic.
Okay, we'll get to that in prognostication. Let's talk a little bit about sports. We're going to get into some sports news. All right, leading off the sports news, the NHL hockey. Did you realize that was still going on?
I did not. I only realized it because Clay Travis had mentioned that you can watch a hockey game, an NBA game, a football game all in the same night. I was like, oh, hockey's still happening.
Did you realize, sadly, hockey is right now in their, like, this is their finals?
Yeah. I didn't realize it was in the finals. I thought it was like the Eastern, was it the Eastern Western Conference finals or the actual?
I don't know. I think it's the finals.
I stopped watching football. Like I checked scores, but I checked updates by text, but I haven't even watched football.
The sad part is hockey, by and large, didn't do anything from the whole race thing, and yet no one's watching it, and that's too bad for me. At least I feel bad because I actually, they actually stayed for the most part out of the fray. And yet, when I found out they said, these two teams are playing in the Stanley Cup Finals, I was like, oh my gosh, I had totally forgotten hockey was even going on. All right, the NFL. What do you think? What say you is the biggest storyline of the NFL after 2 weeks?
The injuries.
I wrote that down.
My goodness.
So read off the people that can come to the top of your head that have already been injured.
Saquon Barkley out for the year.
Yep.
Christian McCaffrey, I think, has a high ankle sprain.
4 to 6 weeks. Marcus
Colston, similar type of sprain, maybe slightly different, but he's probably out 4 to 6 weeks. Le'Veon Bell is on IR right now. Well, he's not a massive star. Jimmy Garoppolo, injured. Yep. Tyrod Taylor had an emergency, Justin Herbert was thrown in at the last second and did a pretty dang good job. They almost took it from the Chiefs.
Yep.
Gosh, who else? I might be missing a couple big names. Help fill in some gaps.
You're missing a lot.
Fill in my gaps.
People who have already missed time, or how about Cortland Sutton?
Oh yeah, Drew Lock.
Cortland Sutton out for the year. Now he's not as big a name for many people listening, but for anyone in fantasy, he was supposed to have a kind of a breakout year.
First round draft pick 2 years ago. Come on,
yep.
That's a big name.
You said Jimmy Garoppolo, Von Miller.
Oh yeah, that's a big loss, and he's been a pretty rock solid guy. He has not missed many games.
Nope. Michael Thomas. You forgot the number one wide receiver.
Michael Thomas. Did I say Marcus Colston on accident?
You said Marcus Colston, and I was
I meant Michael Thomas. Colston's been out of the league for a while.
Yeah, very, very 2015 of you. How about Drew Lock?
I do remember Drew Lock. Yes.
How about? Let me see if you can guess. This guy has the 5th highest selling jersey. We talked about him last week. Trump supporter.
I don't remember what my wife told me this morning. Don't make me remember last week.
Nick Bosa.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm going to say I don't listen to our podcast, man. I just
clearly. Raheem Mostert.
Mostert went down. That's right. And also, actually, I just saw Tevin Coleman has an injury as well. So it's the Jerick McKinnon show right now.
George Kittle.
That's right. Jordan Reed. Old man Reed had a good game. He'll be alive for about one more week.
And Chris Godwin missed last week.
Yeah.
Think about those names it's ridiculous when you think of, so tell me why do you think it is? That, again, you want to talk about statistical analysis. There's got to be something. That is a lot of big name players going down.
We saw a lot of quarterbacks get injured last year. We saw a lot of running backs went down. I just think it was the big names that went down. That was so stunning about it. Injuries happen. Now, is it a result of a lack of a preseason? Is it a result of, less training camp? Very likely. I don't know that we needed the preseason to warm things up. Because, again, I think what we see injuries trickle in over the preseason, whereas this was sort of like wham, bam, now everybody's playing. So I think that I want to guess that over the typical span where the preseason and first game and second game meet, we just had that condensed. And so it feels like a lot more. That's my guess. I'd have to do some analysis, which, that's work, but that's my assumption.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to say that this is proof that the COVID decisions actually hurt more people than helped right? So more ACLs got blown out, less people who got the flu, but more ACL injuries. All right. So, so I think that about does it for our sports news. Again,
how you feel about it? Let's go Chicago. Come on, we're a Chicago podcast. How do you feel about Mitch Trubisky? He's 2-0 against not great teams, but he's 2-0.
Dude, he's 2-0. I mean, sadly, it's hard to comment for someone who's.
The Giants had to lose one of the best players in the league for us to do it, but we're 2-0.
Oh, he is just not that good. I mean, again, I really still think the biggest news to me was Tariq Cohen getting a 3-year extension worth $18 million. And I thought to myself, how stupid is that?
That was dumb. Tariq Cohen's the kind of guy that you love having on his rookie contract, but you let him go after that.
Yeah. He's like our third string running back, and we're giving him $6 million a year.
And then pissing off Allen Robinson by not extending him yet. I think they're in works right now, but like, what are you guys doing? Like, what are you doing?
What are you doing? Ryan Pace, what are you doing?
We don't need Tariq Cohen with David Montgomery. Like, we need a serviceable backup, but we don't. I don't get that. And I like Cohen. I'm a fan of Cohen. He's a good receiver. Seems like a hardworking kid, but he was a bit of a flash in the pan that first year. And now people have kind of got him figured out. Just like
that's all I'm saying. Again, I have nothing against him. I just
runs really fast in place.
There's exactly, and he gains about a yard every time he touches the ball. All right, on to Prognostication Station. Let's prognosticate the biggest news of the week, which we haven't talked much about, the Ruth Bader Ginsburg passing last week. And everyone gave their pleasantries and everyone's like, oh, I feel bad. We're going to talk about her from a political perspective. But, when you sign up for the Supreme Court, that's kind of how it works. Yeah. Just like our very, very famous podcast. If one of us were to happen, I'm sure they would talk about how we were and wouldn't remember that we're just human beings as well. Yeah. So she passed. She's no longer with us. So now the big story is, does Trump nominate another person to the court? And then secondly, does that person get confirmed by the Senate? So let's start with the Trump question. Does he nominate someone?
Yeah, of course he's going to, 100%. He's already said he's going to. I've got like a pre-prognostication to that. Number one, do you believe her actual dying wish was for a justice not to be elected until the next election?
Oh, good question. I hadn't thought about, do I believe it? I frankly didn't care.
She's dying. She's about to meet her maker, right? So she's seeing an army of dead babies that she's helped murder over the past, I don't know how many years, right? And she's starting to slip into that. The first thought she has is, make sure that my replacement comes from the next election. I'm not so sure that's your last thought on your deathbed, but maybe, especially since she's on the record of saying that if there's a justice seat open in an election year, like that doesn't stop, like your work doesn't stop. You need to elect a justice. Those are her own words from, I want to say about 4 years ago.
So some things that have popped up, I have found fun. So this is a little bit, we'll get to the prognostication, but let's just talk about it for a second. Number one, did you hear, it's all kind of popping up again, what she said about Colin Kaepernick kneeling?
You sent this to me. That was interesting. Yeah, go read it off again.
Yeah. So what she said was, I don't think you arrest people for doing it, but it was stupid and disrespectful, like burning the flag. I thought it was dumb. That's what she
can find common ground with, at least. Gosh.
That's what she said about Colin Kaepernick. And then for those who say she later apologized, no. She later said, I should have said no comment. She didn't say I shouldn't have said that and I don't believe what I said. She just said I should not have said that to Katie Couric. Secondly, she was confirmed in 44 days, which I thought was pretty ironic. Third, she did say that in an election year, it shouldn't matter when you're president, you still have your job to do. So for those people out there saying, oh, Trump would be such a bad person, I just want to educate them. You might still hate Trump. I have no problem with people hating what Donald Trump tweets. But again, when it comes to electing a president and the position of president and judging someone as president, what their social media account looks like is probably not exactly the way to do it, but you should probably look at it from a perspective of what's happened and did they do their job and so on. From your job perspective, President Trump should be nominating someone.
do you think the Republicans are hypocritical for doing this when Obama tried to fill a seat and Mitch McConnell in the newly elected Senate majority refused to even hold a vote, citing, they didn't think it was right to do that in an election year? Do you find them to be hypocrites?
Okay, great question. And this is because, again, I want to understand the conversation. I want to understand the other side. The other side wants to say McConnell, the Republicans, this is hypocritical. Here's my answer to them. Doesn't matter. And here's why it doesn't matter. Because they changed all the rules. They want to talk about the rules of engagement and political rules and everything else. They threw the rules out this year when they decided in an election year, for political purposes, they were going to impeach Donald Trump. Don't try to play the card of, well, no, we thought he did bad and he did wrong. They knew exactly what they were doing. They made a conscious decision in an election year to impeach a sitting president, which has never been done before. So I don't know that I really care if it's hypocritical or not. And by the way, again, if the Democrats held the Senate right now, I could see them stopping Trump from getting someone through. That's how the rule book is built. The president nominates and the Senate approves or not, confirms or not. So as far as I'm concerned, what does it matter if they're hypocritical? You can say they are, just like we can claim that they're hypocritical about a million things. Bottom line, Trump should nominate someone, and I do believe the Senate will get it in.
And in 2013, the Senate voted 52-48 with all Republicans and 3 Democrats voting against the rule that vote on closure under Rule 22 for all nominations other than the Supreme Court of the United States is by majority vote. They basically voted to invoke the nuclear option, and they set precedent then. It wasn't to actually elect a sitting Supreme Court justice, but McConnell was on record going like, you shouldn't do this and you may regret this and you're going to regret it sooner than you think. And so there's that as well. So, I mean, this is an ugly game. Politics is ugly. There's hypocrite. You can call it hypocrisy on both sides, but these are the rules that they set, and now we're playing by them. Here's the bigger issue, though. It's very likely that this vote is going to be contested, especially if Trump wins the election. We're going to need 9 Supreme Court justices to break a tie. If we don't have it filled, that has got to be done. Otherwise, who's going to break that tie? I'm not sure who that goes to, actually. In fact, if there's no president decided, I want to say it goes to the Speaker of the House in the interim. And who's that? Nancy.
Oh, she's off her rocker. That would be the worst thing that ever happened.
She's off her rocker, a rocker of power.
So, all right. So just the prognostication. You say Trump does nominate. I say Trump does nominate. Who does he nominate?
Oh, who's that girl? What's her name? She was one of the finalists for the last seat. What was her name? You know it. You recommended her. I looked her up and I'm like, yeah, you're right.
Amy Coney Barrett?
That's the one. Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be that. The better question is, will he get the votes?
Yes. And by the way, sleeper alert, it's not going to be her. I think it's going to be Barbara Lagoa, Lagoa.
Kamala! Lagoa.
Yeah.
We're great with names.
I don't know.
It's not racism. It's stupidity, folks. So he's lost 2 votes already. Romney hasn't said anything yet. Romney's not a Trump fan.
Doesn't matter. This isn't about Trump, man. This isn't about Trump. I don't understand. This is not about Trump. Forget Trump. You know what? Next week, you know what I want to do next week? We're going to get rid of names. We're going to stop talking about Trump. We're going to talk about just what they do. I think so many people are so caught up with the name. Lose the name Trump.
I'm not. They are.
Whatever. We're going to call President X. Like, just forget about the name. Let's talk about the decision that Romney needs to make is not about him versus Trump. Who cares? It's a bunch of trillionaires fighting against each other. Who cares? It's going to go through. I have no doubt in my mind.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna say yes, it will, but I'm concerned it won't. Okay. Another prognostication. How many riots once it goes through? Price is Right rules. Major cities.
Oh. Well, I mean, I guess it all depends on what you consider a riot, but certain Portland, but they've been rioting for like 118 straight days.
If a fire is lit on a building, then it's officially a riot. We'll call it.
All right. Well, Seattle for sure, Portland. I'm sure the Bay Area, LA, Chicago, New York,
I'm going to say 12 cities.
Houston,
Not going over.
Houston. Yeah, Atlanta. Sure. 12. I'll take the push. I'll go with 12.
Okay.
All right. Should we do our top 5?
Let's do it.
All right, let's finish it off with our top 5. This week, we are doing top 5 worst trends.
Okay.
Top 5 worst trends. So I will let you go first. Top 5 worst trends, and have fun with this.
Number 5 is White Claw and every other seltzer beverage out there for alcohol. You know what I'm talking about?
Good one, like the Trulias or Trulies.
What happened to like being a grown-ass man and choking down beer that you hated the flavor, pretended you loved it, and said, "Oh yeah, well this tastes great." You just choked it down to get drunk. We didn't have these foo-foo White Claws, and like you're trying to make it cool, like it's acceptable. It's not acceptable. Like I'm labeling you a Z or they if you drink that. So not a cool trend. Not a cool trend.
You know what? I think a lot of ours are going to end up being demasculated trends. And this is actually for women, and this is just my thing. Don't get it. Uggs. They're not that cool. I think they're so ugly and stupid and fat looking on the legs, and I don't understand how that became a trend.
They look good if you're hot. I will say that. But that kind
of no. Hot people look good, and they happen to have ugly boots on, so you just let it go.
Well, they're the only ones I can afford Uggs too.
And Tom Brady.
Okay, number 4 for me is, and I don't know if this is still a trend, but I see it enough that I'm putting it on there, is duck face. You know what I'm talking about? Selfie. God, do I hate duck face. God, do I hate it. That's it. I don't have to describe it. You all know it. You all hate it. Duck face.
Duck face. All right. I was going to go with a really broad social media, but I don't know if that's considered a trend as much as just part of our lives, or part of everyone's life but mine. I will go with hashtag anything. Just, hashtag Black Lives Matters, or hashtag, Blue Lives Matters, or whatever. Just hashtag the whole, I don't know. It's so annoying when people say it.
I almost pick hashtag. I'm going to get a bit more granular. This is a type of Facebook post. It is posting your workouts, and especially posting your workouts and saying something like, "I don't usually do this, but." Stop it. Or I just thought this might be an inspiration to others trying to work out. You self-aggrandizing douche. Like, we know exactly what you're doing. Just go work out. Let me see you once every 6 months and go, "Oh, hey, well done. You worked out." Like, I don't need to see your mile time go from 10 minutes to 9:59. Okay. Like, not cool. I don't care.
Roger Bannister would be very proud of you. All right. Political acceptance speeches. I'm just the Oscars and the politicized acceptance speeches. These, and I didn't watch anyone at the Emmys, but I did read an article about it, and it's like they feel like because they have their 38 seconds that they can get to say what they want to say, and telling you, Emmys hit an all-time low. Now there's other reasons. All-time low. No one wants to watch this. All of them. Oscars, they're all losing ratings because no one cares.
You got to look up some YouTube clips of a South Park episode where people smell their own farts. And it just reminds me of this. So they'll put like a champagne glass up to their butt. They're like tooting it, and then they're just like, "Oh, that's good stuff," right? And it just reminds me of these acceptance speeches. Like people that just rip butt and smell their own farts. Okay. I'm going to go with another granular Facebook one, and that is parenting humble brags. It's similar to the workout one. It's like, like OMG, like buckling down for school stuff, but we're going to make it work. And it's like the crate and barrel, fully organized shelves with like lists and things and stuff like that. I mean, just like, shut up. Your life is not that organized. Like, stop humble bragging about how good your life is. And then I see you're divorced a month later. Like, I just don't post about being a good dad. Just be a good dad. It's like an old Chris Rock skit where it's like, I take care of my kids. You're supposed to take care of your kids. You don't post about things you're supposed to be doing already. So My brother-in-law does it all the time, does all this dad stuff with his daughter and like posts it. I'm like, dude, just be a good dad for your daughter. I don't need to see it. But
I think it's fantastic. Yeah, I can just picture it now, and they got to make sure that for their picture, the lighting of their organized crate and barrel and Pottery Barn lighting is perfect, and that the kid's hair is done while they're like sitting behind the desk. And then literally the second after that picture is taken, they're screaming at their kids. They're like, this sucks. I can't stand remote learning. You kids suck. This is the dumbest thing ever. But the way they post it makes it think like,
it's worse. It's like hashtag mom life, hashtag in this together, hashtag virtual learning mom, hashtag I wear my Uggs indoors. It's all the stuff you'd hate.
Oh, do you wonder why I'm not on social media? All right. My number 2, Zoom audience cutaways. I like, if you've watched any NFL game, after every touchdown, they like quickly show like a video board of like the Browns fans at home cheering on Zoom and just like cut it out. Stop. We get it. There's no fans there because there's someone sitting watching the game on Zoom. No one cares. I'm so sick and tired of having to be reminded that we're in this stupid COVID, I can only Zoom with people crap. I'm just so done with really Zoom anything where I have to see it where we should be in person, but we're not. So we're going to show it via Zoom and make us feel like it's not that big of a deal.
Number 1, and I hate this one. When a couple of normal idiots just start a podcast and think people are going to listen and they're going to make it big. Would you just stop? Nobody wants to listen to you. Who are you even? Nobody knows who you are. You're not famous. No one will listen to you. Went from 1 to 10 viewers and had 100%. Nobody cares.
5 times growth. From my 2 girls to 10 family members are listening. Self-aggrandizing asshole.
You're so important. What you say matters. Go put some houses.
All right. My number 1. Anyone above the age of 12 wearing Crocs. Do you have Crocs?
Does it matter if you're wearing socks or no?
You have Crocs.
I'm going to go the RBG route and say no comment, Katie. No comment. I don't know Crocs, but I do have quite the array of slip-on shoes because I'm done with laces. I can't do that every time.
Oh, Crocs beat out the above 12 years old wearing jerseys, but I went with Crocs instead because I saw a pair of Crocs on like a grown male, and I was like, "This is ridiculous."
When you're like any like buddy 12 years old, I thought you were going to go with a like 12 years old and allowing Hollywood to normalize pedophilia with them. Like that's where my mind was going, but the Crocs much more sanitary and also true. So,
I'm not Kevin Spacey.
But if you would be rich and much more pedophilic.
This is true. All right. So that's it for our show here on Monday, the 21st. Please check us out on Wednesday or Thursday this week. It is going to be a very interesting one where we talk about the school system and the critical race theory and how ridiculous the schools are and what they're teaching. It's obnoxious. I don't think that they are teaching anything pre-2000 anymore. So, all right. So hopefully you guys enjoyed today. Comment and please share it, subscribe. But again, please share it. Goodbye.
See you.